All right, welcome back. I'm Dave. This is Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. You know what's really interesting? Tulsi Gabbard actually puts her money where her mouth is. If you want to know what Tulsi Gabbard is all about, here's an idea. Check out the legislation she's working on. Almost in every interview, she talks about either legislation she sponsored or legislation that she's signed on to. She's co sponsored. And one of them that should really, well, two of them should really get your attention right now. If you're a progressive, or even if you're just, say you're on the right and you don't think we should be funding terrorism. Because most people on the right believe that we shouldn't fund terrorists, right? There's a little asterisk, and I'll get to that. Um, so Tulsi Gabbard does this piece of legislation, which I guess only 14 people have co-sponsored. This lady named Shauna, who's on Twitter, has been just, and she's in the group that somebody got me into to chat every so often. She's been on a rampage, and she's just been tweeting up a storm, and it's awesome. Just want to let her know, in case she sees the video, that you've been doing great work. I don't want to say your whole name because I don't want to get you in trouble and me in trouble. But she writes here, where is the progressive leadership? Why is Tulsi Gabbard our only defender? And then she hashtags Tulsi Army leads the way in creating and promoting real legislation to protect Americans. Now, this is the Stop Arming... I love the name of this. It's the Stop Arming Terrorists Act. Now, what's wrong with that? So many things. Because you're admitting that the deep state, the current administration, the last administration, the administration before that, and the administration before that, and most likely going back to Reagan, Carter. I know Carter did it. I don't know about Gerald Ford, maybe. The point Nixon probably did it. We are constantly arming bad guys because in our desire to do regime change or to kind of tip the scales in a conflict within a country, we go in there and we arm bad guys to defeat other bad guys, but they're all bad guys. We just happen to choose a side we think is going to be the better group of bad guys. It's crazy crap. It's just, and we do it all the time. So the name of this piece of legislation, if it gets to the president's desk and he is looking at it, he's going to veto it because he's admitting at that point that he's arming terrorists. And that's why the rest of everybody, see, this is such bold, in-your-face legislation that the name in and of itself makes people across the political spectrum cringe. Now, the constituents, though, on the left and the right, I know a lot of people on the right who would say, yeah, we got to stop doing that. Why are we doing that? And you have to call your congressman and say, hey, why are we doing this? And they're going to say, well, you know, they're going to be all nuanced and get in your face and pull rank on you and say, well, you know, you really have no idea what you're talking about. You see, you little rubes out there in the heartland and in the suburbs and out in the rural countryside, you don't understand how the government works. And let me explain it to you. See, we need to arm Saudi Arabia so they can do bad things, especially in Yemen, because it's in our national interest to have free-flowing and cheap oil. So we're arming terrorists in Saudi Arabia so they can commit genocide in Yemen so we can have cheap oil. Okay, and that's kind of it. I mean, there are other countries, just go down the list, you know, we need to arm these guys so they can defeat those guys. Remember, we're doing it in Syria, and we don't know who the bad guys are in Syria because again, the deck chairs on the Titanic, they're shifting around quite a bit in Syria. But the right thing to do would be, let's just step away from this. Let them work it out for themselves. But we don't do that. That piece of legislation is gold, okay? It's gold because it's in your face. It says stop arming terrorists, and we're doing it, and we're proposing that we stop doing it, and that is so progressive in your face, and see, that's where I'm I'm giddy with excitement to be on this side of things now, because you kind of had to be polite on the other side and say, well, I know we're just gonna have to trust the plan. That's the thing you always hear. QAnon, trust the plan. It'll be okay. Trump's got this. Trump's got it. No, he doesn't. Do you think Donald Trump wants to arm terrorists? I don't think he cares anymore, but Jared Kushner wants to arm terrorists. Sure he does. I mean, because Benjamin Netanyahu wants to arm terrorists, right? I mean, Israel has got some terrorist stuff going on the way they behave, so everybody's on the same page. Pete Buttigieg there, he's on the same page with this. Okay? That's why the establishment loves him. Joe Biden, who supposedly is going to declare his candidacy tomorrow, he wants to arm bad guys. He has done it. He's voted to do it. So Tulsi here, just showing enormous courage, and just puts it right in the name. Okay? Just like the Off Fossil Fuels Act. Why is that better than the Green New Deal? Well, let's talk about this briefly. Now, I'm of the belief that if climate change is occurring, which I agree that it is, I don't know what we're going to do single-handedly to stop it. We're one country, and yes, we're responsible for a good chunk of the world's emissions and pollution and so forth. However, you've got to get China on board. You've got to get Russia on board. You've got to get every country. Every country on the earth has to be on board. And China is building coal-fired plants. Now, Tulsi is a two-part answer. Tulsi's off fossil fuels, as she says in the first sentence when people ask her about it, why is this better? She says because it's an actionable plan. The Green New Deal is a resolution. It's kind of like a non-binding resolution. It's basically, do you commit to doing these things? Sure. But it's not binding. It's not like anybody voted on the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is like a poster that you hang. And you say, look at all these things that we have to do. And people freak out and they look at it. Tulsi has created actual legislation that people could vote on. And it's reasonable, and it's doable. So that's the difference. And again, in the name is where you learn about what it is. It's the Off Fossil Fuels Act. So easy. An 8-year-old could figure it out. Those kids that went down to see Barbara Boxer, they could read that and go, hey, look, Tulsi Gabbard, the Off Fossil Fuels Act. Hey, Barbara, this is what we need to do, And Barbara would say, well, we just don't have the money to do. I shouldn't laugh. It was just hysterical. She was cornered, and all that's funny. Everybody on the right who couldn't stand Barbara Boxer, and we find out in these moments that it's a uniparty. I've heard this for a long time. I've heard this back in the 90s. It's kind of a uniparty. And that's when I got a little more libertarian and Ron Paulish and stuff. But she's just saying the talking points like, well, how are we going to pay for it? I don't know, Barbara. How are we going to pay for this war in Afghanistan? How are we going to pay for that? I mean, and it is a good question to ask. Part of it would be Tulsi's first piece of legislation here, which would be to stop arming terrorists. Wouldn't that be a start? I mean, you guys just don't want to admit that you're just helping Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, whoever's making the weaponry. This is all for them. And the rest of us are like holding our hands out like this, like, please, sir, just give me a few crumbs. It's really irritating as a citizen to watch these people just carve up all of our tax dollars and just send them places. Meanwhile, you got an opioid crisis, you got water in Flint that you can't drink, and it's not just like people can't even take a Imagine you live somewhere where the water comes out and it's poison. Think about that. And in a normal country, and I do mean normal, like a country that cared about its citizenry, the state and federal government would go in there and pull everything apart and clean everything and get them on water that worked. And it would be done. Hey, our military can do anything, right? You could send the military in. They could fix it. But I don't know. Our priorities are so, bass-ackwards right now. It's just... And what's great about Tulsi is she doesn't have to even explain this. The titles of her legislation, what they're called, is enough to get you thinking, wow, she wants to get us off fossil fuels. She wants us to stop arming terrorists. But if that bill got to President Trump and he looked at it, he couldn't sign it. His people in his own party, the White House, the advisors, oh, no, you can't sign that because you're admitting that our CIA and everybody else is involved in arming terrorists, and we've never admitted to that. Even though Trump kind of ran, although he didn't get that specific, but he just said he didn't want to do interventions. But see, if you have Bolton and Pompeo and Pence, Mike Pence might be the shadow president. I think it's Bolton. Pompeo, too, seems very comfortable just throwing out all the policies. I mean, everybody around Trump is a better communicator than he is. So as soon as they start to talk, you go, okay, this guy's the president now. Oh, no, maybe this guy's the president now. I mean, because Trump just goes out there and poorly and just reads a teleprompter and can't even, and there's no connection with the audience. It's like he's just trying to read and get through it. Like, today we honor our veterans, I mean, people thought Bush was bad at this. He was. Trump is worse, though. And when you see somebody who can communicate, then you go, okay, I guess Mike Pompeo's in charge. And if Mike Pompeo's in charge, we are doubly screwed, all right? But anyway, getting back to Tulsi, you want to know what Tulsi stands for? It's in the legislation, all right? All right, share the videos, like them, share them. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you can do Patreon, I'd really appreciate your help there. All right, see you soon.